Yes, we are very fortunate to have another one of our distinguished classmates to present today, John Phelps. John is one of my cohorts for the program committee, and I really thank him for his contributions in that regard, and give him a extra thanks, because this is the second time he's presented a lesson this time. And so here is the farmer and also the industrial real estate broker. He's many talented, and our speaker today.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Well, I certainly enjoyed the concert, and huge thanks to Martha Jane and Sarah and Bill and Shaw. Everybody else. Anyway, it was really cool. Well, our lesson is kind of a continuation of the celebration of the 4th of July. And it's, that's 1776, and the Constitution doesn't really evolve until 1787, which is quite a few years. So,
Okay.
Relative to the question of God and the U.S. Constitution, let's look at all of the evidence of God in our government.
Yeah, me too. Where did I put that thing? Yeah, we'll find it in a minute. Keep going, John.
All right. Typically, how many times do we see God
Come on, what was this
stated?
thing?
And does anybody ever answer the question, is that in the Constitution? Can you do that? How about in God we trust? Look at all your money in your billfold. Would you believe that every state has a constitution,
All right, we're going to find it here.
and every constitution has God in it? And
There we
Massachusetts
go.
has God 8 times. North Carolina has 10 times. So there's a constant question of, when we see God being used, does the Constitution let it happen? Okay? So the key question is, we're going to go next slide there. The key question: was God's influence written into the Constitution by the founding fathers in either the original 7 articles or the 27 amendments? Okay, guys. How many say yes? Yeah. Okay, well, I see come on, guys, a spattering. Raise it high. Those are all right. How many say no? All right. How many say maybe? What if I make a case for it in some way? Okay. All right. So the lesson is going to be a little different today. It's going to be a bunch of history, a bunch of scripture, some scripture, wonderful scripture, and some civics. So our goal is to gain the accumulated knowledge of placing you in Philadelphia in May of 1787, and not 1776. To give you the accumulated knowledge of what those men did with our Constitution and how they formed it. So what we're going to do is we're going to zip back 2,000 years. Now we're going to be traveling fast. And then we're going to pick up some knowledge over the years, maybe a little bit too much on the history, and then we're going to zip forward again back to Philadelphia. But we're going to try and place you in Philadelphia, those days when the men formed the Constitution. So let's look at the historical background. And if we go back 2,000 years, we start with Matthew, when Jesus is telling his apostles, and we just have already read it, but it was a great assignment. Then Jesus came to them and said, "All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations. And the disciples do. And the church spreads. And why does the church spread? The church spreads because, one, the disciples were dedicated. It was a wonderful message. It gave you an answer for eternal life. And it existed in the Roman Empire, which allowed it to progress. Eventually, by the year 400, the Roman Empire accepts Christianity as its official religion. Unfortunately, the Roman Empire doesn't make it. It fails. And as the Roman Empire fails, all of Western Europe breaks down into kingdoms. And these kingdoms are very, very separate. And they form competitive situations. And what's most fascinating about the kingdom is they developed this concept of the divine right of kings. Can you imagine the divine right of kings where they feel that their power comes directly from God? They answer to no one. They don't answer to the people. Remember that phrase. They don't answer to the people. They don't answer to the church. They don't answer to any barons or any government group. In the meantime, the church continues to grow. And the church grows and becomes strong, it becomes powerful, it becomes an institution, it becomes rich, it becomes wealthy, it becomes greedy, it becomes difficult, okay? It becomes jealous. And what we've done, we've skipped forward all the way to from 400 to 1500. And by the time the ability of the church to control is the leading institution in the world at the time, because all the kingdoms are broken up. And at some point, there is a problem with a very religious young man in Germany. And he is struggling very, very hard. He's trying as hard as he can to become righteous with God. And he reaches the point of reading in his Bible, and he comes across Romans 1:17. For in God a righteousness from God is revealed, a righteousness that is faith from first to last. Just as it is written, the righteous shall live by forever, by faith, So what does he do? He writes out 50, 60, 80, 85 complaints, and he nails them to the door of the local church. And folks, it's the biggest thing, it's a tipping point in history, an incredible point. He's trying to reform the church. And what do they call it?
Heretic.
They call it the
Already made a
Reformation.
mistake.
They call it heresy too. Yeah, they call it both heresy and. But anyway, and I forgot to tell you, remember those kingdoms that I told you about? None of them liked each other. And they were all extremely jealous. They all wanted more territory. They all, they loved to fight. It was just a constant series of wars. But by the end of, the Reformation kicks off new thinking. The thinking had been there all along, that the kings had just had too much power. So the Reformation kicks off what's called a period of enlightenment. So all of a sudden the thinking is new. And one of the speakers, you would call him, if you were on the internet now, you would call him a influencer, okay? You know how you've got influencers on the internet? Well, the influencer then was a guy named John Locke. And his comment was that the authority of government was limited and requires the consent of the people, and that men had inalienable rights of life and property. You're going to hear that again somewhere down the road, okay? Now, in the meantime, you have a huge series of wars that have gone on in Europe. And when you introduce the breakdown of the Catholic Church, you're adding additional gasoline to the fire. So not only do the kings have political ambitions and territorial ambitions, but if you throw in the Protestant Reformation, you're now pitting Spanish Catholicism against Protestant Netherlands, or the English Protestants against French Catholicism. So the Pope is still in there manipulating as much as he can. So let's go, we made it through the history, okay? That's the hard part. I forgot to tell y'all, it's gonna be on the test. Okay? So just like your grandkids say, is that gonna be on the test? Yep. So I hope you were taking good notes. All right, let's go to England's American colonies, because we're moving pretty fast through history. Nobody's busy, all right? So it's kind of been light speed. So if you look at America's colonies, you have a two-type, proprietary and colonial. Most colonies started off as a company, and the king gave somebody the rights to establish a colony. Most of them converted to a royal colony before it was over with. So here's what you want to look at. The colonies are incredibly diverse. The Massachusetts Bay Colony was formed by Puritans coming out of England that were fleeing and trying to improve upon the Church of England. Really interesting concept. The previous earlier king of England not only established the divine right of kings, but he also took over the church. He said, hey, I'm the head of the church too. So you have a combination of combined powers. But anyway, you've got Virginia, which is agricultural. Georgia, the last guy to join, they were basically assigned as a buffer to Spanish Florida. So some of you have been to St. Augustine. Jeff, you've been to St. Augustine, haven't you? So you saw the Spanish there, right?
Yep.
Now, do you remember when I said every state had God in his constitution? Remember when I said that?
Yep.
Except for Hawaii.
That's why it's far, far left. They were left out.
Hawaii did not include God or a divine or a supreme being. It did include grateful for divine guidance. Okay?
That's pretty good.
So it was also one of the last states formed. All right, let's jump to right before the Revolution. Now, one of the last things that has occurred is started in America. It was called the French and Indian War. And actually America, the colonies would form their own regimental units to assist the British. They had a large British army in America. They were fighting the French. There was actually a young colonial major that served in the colonial army that you'll hear about later. Probably guess who it is. Anyway, what happened in war is the countries run out of money. It takes a lot of money to have a war. And at the end of the French and Indian War, England was short on money. So what they basically decided to do, why don't we raise money from the colonies?
Right, squeeze
So
them.
we will do everything we can to agitate the colonies and try and raise money. So they basically try and do it through a stamp act. They try and do it through the Townshend Act, which is taxes and duties. They irritate the colonies. They have some accidents, the Boston Massacre. They try and pass the Intolerable Acts. Boston rebels against the Tea Act. The Tea Act was, they gave the East India Company a non-competitive clause to have all rights on selling tea to the colonies. And that didn't really go over very well. So the Bostonians throw the tea in the thing, and the British government reacts with the Intolerable Acts, which were punitive. They closed the Boston Harbor. They removed the governor of the colony. They put a British general in instead. They established the British Navy outside the port. So by 1774, the colonies react. So let's go to the Revolution, okay? This will be the next slide. So the first Continental Congress is formed, and they say, listen, we need you, England. You're our economic bread and butter. And at least they're going to do everything they can to try and reconcile themselves with the mother country. They send an olive branch petition. The king refuses to see it. He refuses to even receive it. So they automatically had established the Second Continental Congress the following May. In the meantime, the British Army starts getting antsy and saying, what are the colonists doing? Are they storing arms somewhere? So they march to Lexington and Concord. And that's when folks, the cat gets out of the bag. All right, at that point on, you have a year of fighting before you reach April of 1776. So what happens in April of 1776? Help me.
Declaration.
Almost. Thank you. You're close enough. You were a wonderful responder. In April of 1776, Richard Henry Lee of the Second Continental Congress stands up and says, I propose that we separate from England. And it passes. A month later, they form a committee to form the Declaration of Independence. And the Declaration of Independence is formed.
When in the course of human events.
So what you've got to do is do we have it on the board? Let's just see it up there.
You want to see the declaration preamble?
Yeah, what did I miss? Okay, in the second Continental Congress, they also, this is a de facto government, you understand? And they adopt the Declaration of Independence. They establish the Continental Army. They draft the Articles of Confederation during this same body. The Articles of Confederation is each state is its own governor. Each state, when they attend the convention, has one vote. One vote. Rhode Island has got one vote. Massachusetts, Virginia, they've all got one vote. Rhode Island loved it, by the way. So things, the Declaration of Independence is finalized in July, obviously, the 4th, and that's what we were celebrating a lot yesterday. So let's look at the Declaration. You got to read this, guys. If you haven't read it recently, you've got to. I mean, this poetry is absolutely gorgeous. The guys that wrote this. Jefferson, of course, was given the name of the son. Let's drop down to the second paragraph. Everybody join me, okay? You with me? You willing? All right, second paragraph.
We hold
these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, providing for such powers as the consent of government. They that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. Can you see the velocity of the huge shift from the divine right of kings to the government by the people? Do you see this? So, I mean, nothing is structured yet. So this gets us to the Constitutional Convention in 6 years later. Now, that's a big jump. Now, the folks that were at the Declaration of Independence, the Second Continental Congress, very few of them make the Constitutional Convention 6 years later. That's a long time. So the objective of the Constitutional Convention is to create a stronger federal government, because if you remember the Articles of Confederation, each state had only one vote. There was only one legislation, a unicameral legislation. And they wanted to create a stronger federal government capable of operating more effectively and efficiently. During the Revolutionary War, the Articles of Confederation allowed Washington's army almost to starve in their encampment, winter encampment, because they couldn't raise money to feed them. The states said, hey, I'm not sending money, let somebody else do it. And to rewrite the Articles of Confederation. The main issues were the sovereignty of states versus a strong central government. Hamilton wanted a strong central government. Jefferson wanted less than a strong central government. And also, the most important thing, the sovereign rights of the people, because we just discussed that in the Declaration of Independence. The Federalist Papers were written by Hamilton, Madison, and John Jay to promote the new Constitution. So here we are, folks, at the Constitution. And we've tried to develop the information that the Founding Fathers had. So the Virginia Plan is a bicameral government, two parties. Both parties are elected by the population of the colony or the state. Now, who's that good for? That's
Virginia.
good for the populated states, of the populated. It's not good for Rhode Island. Okay? And Rhode Island obviously is going to be against it from the very beginning. The New Jersey plan says, okay, let's don't change the Articles of Confederation. Let's leave it like it is. And Roger Sherman from Connecticut stands up and says, let's blend them together, okay? Let's make a bicameral, two parties. Let's make the lower party by population. Let's make the larger party in the upper house on an even representation. Let's have a chief executive. And through this process, we've developed a series of checks and balances and separation of powers. So the Constitution is ratified 1789. How many years since 1776?
13.
13 years, folks. Can you imagine? And the Bill of Rights is added in 1791. The Bill of Rights, the Constitution was not clear enough on the rights of the people. So we basically reached the point. Let's do the parts of the Constitution, okay? That would be number 11. So you've got 7 articles and 27 amendments. So the Constitution was structured to have changes. And let's go to the preamble of the Constitution, because that's important. And it's part of our, I told you it was going to be a civics lesson, okay? Certainly great. So let's look at the preamble to the Constitution. Y'all going to join me?
Yep.
All right. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union,
establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, ensure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Okay, we made it. Made it all the way from the question at the beginning to the answer. Okay, y'all ready for the answer? You sure? All right. So the question was God's influence written into the Constitution by the Founding Fathers in either the original 7 articles or the later 27 amendments. Now the answer. But first, let's look at the religion of the faith of the Founding Fathers. Washington was an Anglican, well, not, they're as close as you can identify the Anglican faith. Jefferson and Franklin were deists.
How do you define deist, John?
Good question. The best I can do, and I'm going to do the best I can here, okay, because this is pretty, a deist was a person that believed in a supreme being, but a non-intervening supreme being.
Right.
So that's the best I can do.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's go to the answers, okay? Those that said no, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
Not only no, but no, 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 okay? Because you just can't have all these wars that occurred in a strong church participating in formulating wars. And the reason is, the purpose stated, the Constitution is nothing but a blueprint on how to run the country, okay? Set of rules, and it's the ultimate laws of the land. The second reason is America's religious diversity. Religion was viewed as a matter of personal choice. It promoted no denominations. It was the legacy, folks, of the Founding Fathers to separate the church and the state. It was their gift to overcome this horrible history that occurred in Europe. And the last reason, the theory of government. Popular sovereignty. What was it? What was the preamble to the Constitution?
We the people.
We the people. The government derives its legitimacy from the consent of the governed. The Constitution not only rejected monarchy, but all forms of hereditary privilege and arbitrary rule. The source of all legislature and executive power can be traced directly or indirectly to the people. And there's no mention of the divine being. Although every state mentioned God in their constitutions, except for Hawaii, nothing is in our Constitution. All right, did anybody say yes that God was in our Constitution? All right, there was some maybes in there too. All right, let's go to yes. Benjamin Franklin, in doing the Constitutional Convention, he was one of the few that made it all the way from the Declaration of Independence to the Constitutional Convention. He's the leading deist of the time. He did not believe in God intervening. He stood up at the Constitutional Convention. He realized all the division that was on, all the arguments, all the lack of agreement. He praised to God for intervention.
Doesn't that conflict with him being a deist?
That's the point I'm making.
Right.
That's exactly what I'm
All right,
trying to
good.
say.
I'm glad I understood that.
God has intervened. Number two, after the convention ended, James Madison was quoted, "It is impossible for the man of pious reflection not to perceive in the Constitution a finger of that almighty hand which has been so frequently extended to our relief in the critical stages of the revolution." Number three, it just so happens that the very last sentence in the Constitution, somehow or another slipped in, done in convention by the unanimous consent of the states present on the 17th day of September in the year of our Lord 1787. Kind of a backhanded inclusion, okay? And so this basically was the hand of God putting the right man in the right place at the right time. So I personally believe that God had a strong presence in the Constitutional Convention.
So your answer could be,
Maybe.
no, your answer could be number 2 for a yes.
Could be yes. It's a
Word
weak-
being influence.
It could be a weak yes or a good maybe, okay? All right, what do y'all want to talk about? Anybody got any comments? Anybody got any questions? Mike, you got a great one.
Quick question. If I remember right, when this Constitution was formed, it only extended west to the Mississippi River. And as further states were added, do you know if anything changed with the God or some definitions?
No, God, only in the First Amendment do you see an additional mention of religion. And that's called the, what was that called? Anyway, in the First Amendment, the Congress will make no law, the Establishment Clause, Congress will make no, that was in the first 10 amendments. The 6th article, the only thing it says about religion is you don't have to be a member of a religion to be a citizen of the United States or an officer. What else? Anybody else got a question? Yes, ma'am. Ethel.
I would appreciate knowing what the other religions besides the first 2 that were up there, the 2.
Oh, boy. Well, you got,
There
you got, you mean how many denominations there were?
Well, just who was active in their thinking.
Oh, okay. Well, you want to go back to that slide? Can you go back?
It's already there.
Oh, okay. Wow.
You're amazing.
Well, you got to keep in mind that at this particular point, the religious and the denomination wasn't the dominant thing in the founding fathers' mind. It was establishing a country. It was establishing changing the rights of the divine imperial rulers to the people. But they all had some affinity. As far as denominations, you had Lutherans, you had Anglicans, you had Baptists, Presbyterians, Quakers, Mennonites, on and on and on. Many of them, well, colonists, people came to America for 2 reasons. For one, a better life, and 2, to escape religious persecution, which was really the Puritans. So anyway, I think it's been fun. I've had fun. And any other questions?
John, you know who the first Methodist president is?
The first Methodist president. It wasn't John Wesley, I'll say that much.
Yeah.
He was never a Methodist, really.
Was it George Bush?
We'll have to Google that one.
George H.W. was Methodist.
Yeah, right.
Was the first one. Top.
The deist, I keep on coming back to that because to me, from our standpoint, that wouldn't qualify as being very religious. If they didn't believe that God had an influence over man. But these 2, Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin, did they have any church affiliation at all?
Well, yeah, they would, I'm sure they would attend church. I mean, it's just
You think so?
part of society at the time. Yeah,
It's hard for me to believe that
George
any,
Washington attended church. He was a vestryman in the
Yeah.
Anglican church.
Attached Christ in Alexandria, Virginia, where he attended Washington, and that's still there. His booth. If you go to Christ Church in Alexandria, Virginia today, the booth that he sat in, along with Robert E. Lee and some others, is it's
Still
pointed
marked, huh?
out where they sit, during church.
Oh, yeah, I like the old,
And
the old
George
Boston, the
Mason,
old North Church in Boston, where.
George Mason refused to sign the Declaration of Independence. He was advisor to Jefferson. Of course, Jefferson revised the New Testament, you know.
Yes.
He wrote the Bible.
Yeah, he went,
So,
pull the Gospels and cut it.
If you don't have a copy of it, you can go to the Library of Congress and read it. The version of the Bible that Thomas Jefferson wrote.
It took all the conflicts out.
All the miracles he
Yeah.
removed.
Jefferson was a character. He was a real businessman.
But is it?
Thank you, John. As you remember, as you introduced John, I asked you a quick question. Who was the second president of the United States of America? What did you say? Put that slide back up, you with the 7 names, please.
Okay, let's see if I can find it
Put that
again.
slide back up.
All right, let's see if I can find it.
One over to the right.
There it is.
There you go, okay.
I got it.
So you see those 7 names up there, right? There's 7 of them up there. One of those guys became the second president.
Adams. Yeah,
Nope, guess again, John Adams, okay?
that's what we said.
So when you go home, you look it up, John Adams was the second president of the United States. Right? So take a look at that and you'll see he and Jefferson had this big argument over who was gonna be it and what was gonna be it. And it was the last time they agreed in an election, whoever came in first would be president, whoever came in second would be vice president. And it was the last time that this country had a president and a vice president from 2 opposite political parties. And that concludes your history lesson for this morning.
No, just one more, just one more.
One more, yeah, go ahead, you.
After they got out of office.
Come on,
Okay.
come on.
After Jefferson and John Adams got out of office, they started corresponding with each other. And they became friends, they talked about a lot of different things. And they both died on the same day, which was July 4th of like 1825.
50 years ago.
That's right, that's right.
Both what?
So, yes, Miss Beth.
Oh,
Come on up, people can't hear you back there. Come on up, come on up. You got anything else you want to add? Come on up, all right. It's interesting how much American history we're getting today. Thank you, John.
Bob and I were blessed in this life to have David McCulloch and his wife as guests over the weekend. David
Ooh.
McCulloch has written wonderful, wonderful books. If you have not read him, please do. But my Bob's favorite was 1776. The movie is wonderful fun, and the book is absolutely great, and it backs up a lot of what we learned today.
There's a great musical called 1770.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Musical book. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. It's amazing how much information we're all sharing. So as you get ready for the 4th of July weekend, remember, next week Sunday, no class, okay? So please go to the one combined service at 10:30 in the morning. Yes, Pat? Come on. Well, stand up and speak up then, dear. So people can hear you, otherwise they can't hear on this side.
I just want to remind everybody on the 4th of July to remember all the veterans that helped make it possible for us.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a ton of them right in this room. So if you ever served as a veteran, stand, please. It is interesting how American history is such a fascinating subject in itself. And it's unfortunate that we're not really teaching the 6th grade, the 5th grade, the 4th grade, the stuff you learned this morning, okay? So if you have one of those in your family, grandkids, great-grandkids, it is your responsibility to remind them of being a patriot in a great country. You have to remind them that, or they lose track of it. So as you celebrate the 4th of July, take a cue from Pat and recognize anyone who served. But the most important thing, tell your family how important their freedom is. I can't emphasize that enough. So many people in our world today are suffering because they don't have any freedom. Imagine, you're in an area where you don't have a say in your government. You have a great say in your government, better than any country in the entire world. And I've gone on way too long. Have a great Sunday. Aloha.
Thanks, Jeff.